showing me a picture of your dog.
Oh, yeah. I love him.
What's his name?
Peter. Peter.
Can you get... Show me. What kind is he?
He's a Stafford. He's a rescue, first of all. So I didn't know what he was until I did a DNA test, and I got made fun of by everybody. But he's a American Staffordshire Terrier, Lab, and Beagle.
Labs are the best dogs.
Oh man, this guy is perfect.
How old is he?
4.
4. Here's mine. That's
So
Coco.
cute. She's got such a sweet face.
Never barked at anybody.
I know.
Never.
That's him too.
You know, they
Sweet
say animals have dogs have one master. They're just connected to one. Is it hot in here?
A little bit, but I'm always hot.
Let me turn it down.
Unless I'm cold. I'm hot unless I'm
Are you
cold.
hot?
I mean, a little bit, but I'm okay. It's crazy for sure.
Where'd you get it at the shelter?
No, I didn't. Actually, Brenda Wojtek, she
Wojtek?
she rescues dogs,
Oh.
and yeah, she gave him.
The Bone Guy's wife.
Yes.
So
The bone guy's wife.
you know, I was such an animal fan that I was a vegetarian for about 15 years.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't eat any meat, but I quit. I didn't feel good.
Being a vegetarian?
Yeah, I just didn't.
So you did not have enough. You didn't have enough
I just
protein.
didn't. There was a feeling that I didn't have. I didn't know what it was, and I watched this guy on a documentary, and so I thought, well, I'll go back to trying it, and that was the key.
Wow.
So
So what do you eat now? Everything? Fish?
I ate everything now.
Beef? Chicken?
I ate everything now, but I'm still against inhumane treatment of animals.
Sure.
So anyway, I've been able to get it straight in my head.
That's good. That's good. I like a good ribeye steak.
Yeah.
But I like cows too.
Yeah, and a pork sandwich is not bad either, is
That's
it?
true. It's true.
You know, I've started getting away from even eating vegetables.
Oh wow, I like vegetables.
It makes me feel better. I'm pretty much now going strictly. I've gone to 180 degrees. Now I'm
Sounds
just
that way.
almost completely just meat,
Wow.
and I feel a lot
That's
better.
probably why you're thin.
Thin, yeah. That and my nerves. So you're the announcer for Cleveland.
I'm the public information officer for the Cleveland Police Department.
Was you a policeman
Yes.
before?
Before what?
Before you was this?
Yeah, the way it works is everyone has to start out on patrol, which is really probably the hardest jobs that you have that you can do. First responders, the true heroes, the guys that respond to the calls, they're the first ones there within seconds or a few minutes, facing terrible situations. They're the ones that see things the first, deal with things the first. So everyone does that. Thankfully, and kind of unfortunately, it was kind of a different situation for me. But I started off on patrol, but I was a single mom at the time. I had a 7-year-old son. And so with the way the shifts work, my mom and dad had to take care of my son. And so when the opportunity came open for me to become a school resource officer, I applied for that. And so I was actually an officer in the schools. So I had all 6 elementary schools. And then finally ended up with just one when we were able to outfit every officer or every city elementary school with an officer. So did that. And then in 2008, Wes Snyder was chief and asked if I would be interested in being the public information officer, the recruiting officer, the PR officer for the department. And so I took that job. So I've been doing that job here for 12 years. Going to be 13 this year.
Is that better than being on patrol? I guess it is, right?
I guess it just depends on who you ask, because there's guys on patrol that would rather be on patrol. Patrol, like I said, it's a hard job, and they have rotating shifts. And I just like it because it fits my personality a lot better as far as connecting with people. One of my jobs is educating people on crime prevention, speaking in different areas, with different businesses, teaching, and then community events. So we'll plan community events to get out in the community and kind of show the kids and people in our community that officers are just like them. That's what it's really important for us to do that.
I remember when I was in elementary school, they'd have the firemen come and give you a hat. You know, the fire hat.
Oh yeah, the plastic fire hat.
Yeah, I've got it here
Everybody,
somewhere.
oh, I'm sure you do.
Well.
Everybody loves firemen. They're the heroes. Yeah, and you know, on good days.
Why is that?
Well, because they don't have the type of liability police officers have, and you know, we've got literally seconds to make decisions. It's funny because you know, I think one of my pet peeves is people, I guess, Monday quarterbacking what officers do.
Yeah.
And unless you have worked and do that job, there's no way that you can understand that. And I read this a lot on social media. You know, people are driving by, they're like, there's 4 or 5 cops stopping one car. It's ridiculous. It's a waste of taxpayers' money. But who's in that car? How do you know who's in that car? How do you know that you didn't stop someone that has a murder warrant out of Florida?
Yeah.
And this person has actually killed a police officer, and you happen to stop that, and you call for backup, and then a supervisor's on the scene, and then and then another officer who's just driving by decides to stop.
Or maybe they didn't have anything else to do anyway, so might as well have.
There's a lot of
everybody
things
come.
to do in Cleveland. Yeah. But if they're close, I would appreciate it, because you don't know who you're stopping. When you turn those lights on and someone pulls over, it could be just a regular traffic stop, or it could be someone who just killed their mother, and they know and they think, oh my gosh, they're coming up to my car.
Or having a bad day.
You never know. So it's a very dangerous job. You know, we might get information. You might have a 911 hang-up call or somebody, you know, the dispatch calls back and someone says, hey, I can't control my husband, and then they hang up. They don't tell you that their husband has a rifle.
So you
and
send
that
one
he's
guy
angry,
or 3 guys, right?
You never know. You send whoever's available. And so if that means 4 officers show up and deal with one person, then I would be grateful if I was that one officer.
Yeah. Did you ever watch Adam 12? You're not old.
No. I was born in, I was born in 76.
So Adam 12 was just probably
Early 70s?
But they always had 2 guys in the car. But they don't do that now, do they? I guess
they do it in other cities. Yeah, they do in other cities.
Is that because the bigger the city, the more the crime?
Yes, yeah, and then you have more officers. Here, we have 105 officers right now, but we have just enough to cover our city. So sometimes we'll have lieutenants and sergeants that will put 3 officers in a sector, 2 officers in another sector, 2 officers in another sector. I mean, it just depends on how, if you can put 2 in each sector, that's the best. And the way that the city is divided, it's kind of divided not like a pie, but like in 4s. Mm-hmm. So you got sector 1, 2, 3, which is south of 20th Street, and sector 3 and 4, which is north of 20th Street. So if you can get 2 guys in each sector, or in one sector with 3, then you're doing really well.
And that's a pretty good bit of area
to cover. That's true. Yeah.
So have you been trained in speaking?
Well, I've been to schools. The police department sends me to schools, and I have my undergraduate from Lee, and then I got a master's degree at Tennessee Tech. Just graduated from there in 2019. So I think that when you expose yourself and try and invest yourself in education and do a lot of speaking, maybe it just comes natural.
If something happens, you have to get on the news and say?
I have to write the press release, and then I have to get on the news and tell them kind of play by play about what's going on.
How often does that happen?
Just depending on when we have a crisis situation.
Twice a month?
It used to be, but after the pandemic, we haven't really had a lot of things, thankfully, that have happened. It could be between 10 and 15 times a year. Last year, it was probably less than 5. But if I don't go on the news, I'm still responsible for writing press
Yeah.
releases if we have a crash or some kind of, I don't know, something that maybe wouldn't warrant the media coming out to the scene, but they still require a response from us.
Do you go out to the scene, or do you?
Yes, if I'm in town, yes. Regardless if I'm working or I'm not working, it's like I'm pretty much on call 24/7, because if we have a situation that happens, then I get called from the chief or the captain, and then I respond to the scene.
So that you can write the report, so you can.
Because the media sometimes, like if it's a homicide, they'll come out to the scene. So I have to make sure that we stage them in an area that doesn't allow them to get in an investigator's way. So I kind of put them in a position where I can answer their questions, and then they kind of stay there and they'll wait until I give them more and more information.
So you report to the reporters.
Yes. Yeah.
So they don't have to investigate to give their report, because they might mess up something on the scene.
Yeah, or what they'll do is they'll talk to witnesses, and they'll kind of come up with their own narrative on what they think, the community wants. And unfortunately, as we've seen, the media likes to play on emotions, and I think instill fear into people. And it's my job I don't want to instill fear in our community members. So let's just take, for example, there's a homicide, and we know that it was a targeted offense, a criminal offense. It was a targeted criminal offense, which means maybe it was a drug deal or something, and one drug dealer killed somebody else, and they've left and gone back to Chattanooga or wherever they're at, whether they're here or where they have contact. What the media wants to tell you is that somebody has been killed, and we still have a killer on the loose, which technically we probably do. But if you know that it's a targeted thing, why not tell the community that, so that people aren't, oh my gosh, I got to get my kids inside, I got to get my dogs inside, I got to lock all the doors, I can't go out anywhere. And so I think that if they can instill fear in the community, then they like that. It's sensationalism.
Why is that?
Sensationalism. It gets more viewers. It gets more people talking. It gets more people saying, "Oh, Channel 3 said this. Channel 9 said this," and people go to their website. They become more popular. But in my case, as an officer, our job is to serve and protect. So I want to give the truth, but I don't want to not give information that would cause people more fear. Because I don't want people to be fearful in my community. I love this community. Mm-hmm. I want them to be able to walk on the Greenway without fear. If you say a woman was sexually assaulted on the Greenway, there's men that are possibly hiding in the creek or at the trailhead. No one's going to want to walk the Greenway. Mm-hmm. But anything can happen anywhere. And that's why it's important for me and for our unit and other police officers to teach people to always be aware of their surroundings. So when you're walking out of Walmart and it's 10 o'clock at night, don't keep your keys in your purse. Keep them in your hand. When you're walking, don't be focused on your phone or you're texting, looking around.
Why is that?
Because you want to see if somebody's watching you. You want to see if somebody's coming towards you.
So you don't want to be distracted by going like this.
You don't want to be distracted. You always want to keep your eyes open, your ears open. What is going on around you? And if you see something that potentially causes a red flag to go up, you turn around and go back in the store, or you get somebody's attention to help you. Mm-hmm. But if you're not focused on that, then you'll be caught by surprise. And who knows? You could get robbed. You could get sexually assaulted. It could happen.
Somebody could hit you with a buggy by accident.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So there's all kinds of things that can happen.
So you've had some obviously training in speaking, I believe.
From a young age, I've always kind of been, I don't know, I've liked that, and I connect with people. I like people. I'm an extrovert, so it comes easy for me to do that. So
you were at Lee?
I went to Lee in '96.
Is that how you came to Cleveland?
Yes. Yeah. My parents, they actually put me on a plane and sent me over here because I was not good.
What was the attraction of Lee?
My parents came in '65.
Oh.
And they met. My dad was from Mexico. My mom was from Virginia. My dad was from a very poor family in Mexico, and he got a scholarship. And so his parents, who were pastors,
what did he get a scholarship in?
Bible. So they sent him over here on a bus, and he studied for three years, and then that's when his scholarship was up. So he wasn't even given the opportunity to finish college because they only gave him a 3-year scholarship. So he met my mom. They got married. They moved to Mexico to become missionaries, and then finally ended up in California, where I was born.
What part of California?
Southern California, Orange County.
Is that near the border, I guess, or what?
The border of
Southern
Mexico.
Yeah, no,
Of Mexico?
Yeah.
San Diego is.
San Diego.
Yeah. San Diego, yeah. So we're about 2 hours north of San Diego.
My uncle was from San Diego.
Oh, yeah. It's beautiful
Yeah.
there. Nah, San Diego's right on the border where Tijuana is, Mexico.
How far are you from Phoenix, Arizona?
5 hours. It's probably 6 hours.
What about Scottsdale?
I don't know. We used to travel a lot to Yuma because that's where my family lives in Mexico across the border from Yuma. So we would drive about 4 hours and then cross the border into Mexico.
Did you ever see that movie,
Which one?
310 to Yuma?
No?
It was really a good movie. It was back in the old Western days.
Oh,
It
okay.
was 310 to Yuma.
Yeah. Huh, I've never seen that. I know.
It was a good movie. That's what I always think about. Yuma.
Yeah. There's really nothing there except dirt.
There wasn't nothing in the movie. It was all desolate.
Yeah. So nothing's changed.
So why did y'all go to Yuma?
To visit my family in Mexico.
Oh.
Yeah, we just drive there and just drive across the border.
Oh.
Yeah. So
when they said we're going to send you to Lee College, that's because they had been here.
yes, and they were at their wits' end with me because I had made a lot of bad choices growing up. And so they just said, there's no place else that you can go, so we're going to send you there. And I did not want to come to Tennessee, but it saved my life.
What'd you tell them?
I actually tried to call the guy I was seeing at the time and ask him to come pick me up so I could leave my house, but he never showed up, thankfully.
So you were rebellious?
I was very rebellious.
Wonder why?
Because I was a teenager and I was kind of trying to figure out who I was and maneuver through public school system in California, and being a Mexican American that didn't look Mexican American, I didn't fit in because I was white.
You were like on the no group?
What do you mean?
I mean, you weren't the Mexicans and you weren't the whites.
Yeah. Well, there was not really a lot of whites in our school. So when I showed up, I was totally different from everybody else. And so I made a lot of bad choices and got hooked up with...
Just trying to fit in?
Yeah. At 12 years old, that's what I was interested
yeah.
in. Yep, and it didn't work out great for me. But thankfully, my life changed when I came here, and this was my saving grace.
When you got here, did you think a bunch of redneck hillbillies? I assume.
I didn't think like that because I didn't even know that word then. I did think that Tennessee probably didn't have paved roads, and that people probably didn't drive cars here, and I just figured that maybe California was a little bit more progressive than Tennessee, but I didn't. That was an ignorant, I guess, thought because I didn't know anybody from Tennessee, and I hadn't been here. So,
did you look it up on the internet?
I literally didn't have time to, because I didn't have time to investigate anything because literally my mom packed my bags, and when I walked in, she said, "You're leaving." It was that day that I was leaving. And so I didn't have time to do anything. She just picked my bags up and put them in the car, and they dropped me off at the LAX airport, and then off I went on a plane from Los Angeles to Atlanta, Georgia.
Were you mad?
Yes, I was furious.
Did you think I'm not going to go?
Well, I had planned on not going when I had called that guy that I was seeing, but thankfully he wasn't anything good, so I'm glad he didn't show up.
Did he answer the phone though?
Yeah. He said, "I'll be there." He said, "I'll be there to get you," and he never showed up.
You ever see him anymore?
No, but he did me a favor. Yeah, he did me a favor because I have no idea how much.
Reckon he came after you left?
I don't know. I really don't care. I don't know. I don't care.
You didn't see him no more?
No, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. It was the best thing. I had to come here. This was the place I had.
But when you landed in Georgia, how'd you get from Atlanta to here?
Someone from Lee picked me up and brought me, and my mom had secured an apartment for me at 485 4th Street Northwest.
Let's see, where would that be?
That's right behind Arnold School, like a 2-story brick apartment
White?
building. It's brick.
Brick.
Mm-hmm.
White
White
brick.
doors. White doors.
White doors, yeah.
Yep, and that's where I lived. For
What
about
year
6
was that?
months. 1996, January 8th.
That's when you moved in? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do you remember
The
that
rent.
date?
Oh, because that I'll never forget that date. That was very significant because that's the day that my life completely changed. But
Did they send a teacher for you?
no,
or?
it was a student that went and picked me up. But that
Were they friendly?
yeah. Oh yeah.
They say, "Oh, you'll like it here. It's okay."
Everyone here was friendly. I mean, even people on the campus. You know, when I stepped foot on campus for the first time, I didn't even look like a person. I mean, I looked totally different. I dressed different than everybody from Tennessee. I talked different. I acted different. I was a different person, but everyone just loved me. I mean, strangers, you know how they are here. I would walk down Ocoee Street and people would wave. Mm-hmm. In California, sometimes I would take the buses, the public transportation places. And I remember I was here probably 3 days and went out to Willow and Keith. And I stood there and I looked down Keith Street waiting for the bus. And I was like, where in the world is the bus? You know, where's the bus? So this couple stopped and said, honey, can I help you? And I said, I kind of backed up a little bit. Uh-huh. And I said, oh, no, thank you. And they said, okay. And they left. Uh-huh. I waited about 20 more minutes. Someone else stopped. Ma'am, do you need help? I was like, no. I was like, why are these weirdos stopping? Like, there's no way in California you're not going to get in a car with anybody. Yeah. Finally, an older couple stopped. And they're like, sweetheart, do you need something? I said, when does the bus come here? They're like, we don't have buses in Cleveland. I was like, what? How in the world do you guys get around here? They're like, we drive cars. Where do you want to go? I said, I was going to go, you know, to the mall, just somewhere. And
so you walked from 4th Street, I guess.
Yeah, 4th Street. Yeah, it was just close.
Yeah.
Just 4th Street down Highland, and then turn left on Willow, and was just standing right there. And I had no idea there was no buses here, so I thought, well, I got to try to get a car. But I had no job. I was a Lee student, and I was a single mom.
Were you a good student?
Yeah,
because that's not an easy school, is it?
No, I took my son with me to class every day because I didn't have anyone to keep him. So here I was.
They let you take them?
They didn't. I never asked. I just went in class and I put a little blanket on the ground and I put my son on there and I would just take notes in class and watch what everybody else was doing.
They didn't say anything?
No one said I couldn't bring him. I didn't have another option because I didn't have a babysitter, I didn't have a car, I didn't have a job. It's not that I didn't want to work, it's that I had literally been here a week.
Yeah.
You know, and so I had to start school. So.
Did you have a roommate there or just?
No, I stayed in the apartment, and then I noticed that the police were getting called a lot to the apartments behind my house.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that provided a little bit of entertainment because I didn't have money for cable, so I would stand out there in the back and watch that. But then finally, I had to request to move into the married student housing at Lee, which is at 1950 Cherry Street.
Yeah.
So that's their married student housing. And because I was a single mom, they allowed me to move in there. So I lived there for the rest of my
I bet that was
time.
a lot better.
It was better, but it's funny because my apartment on 4th Street was $225 a month. And I just had to pay, my parents helped me pay for that. But when I went to their married student housing, it was like $475 a month. But the good thing about that was that I was able to put that on my school loan. What I didn't realize was that the interest was accruing on that.
Yeah.
So here 20 years later, I'm still paying for my school loans. You know, I'm close to being finished, but still
Is the
paying
interest real low?
3.25%.
Yeah.
But I didn't have anyone kind of guide me on that. So, you know, when I filled out all my federal paperwork, and they said, okay, school's going to cost $6,000 for the year. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, but the government's going to give you $10,000. I'm like, yay, I get $4,000 of just free money. But I didn't realize, I think at that time, that I'm going to have to pay that $4,000 back. And in reality, it's going to take you, Evie, 20 years to pay that.
Of course, it might have benefited you more then than it hurts you now, maybe.
I don't know, because I don't really have anything to show for it. Like, oh yeah, I took the money and did this. I think I just probably, I don't know what I did with it, to be honest with you. So I guess I paid for my son what he needed and stuff, but I mean, it probably wasn't a great financial move.
Did you fly back to visit home at Christmas?
I did. That happened probably twice a year, maybe like in the summer when I got out of school and Thanksgiving. But eventually my mom and dad moved here in 1999. And then
3 years later.
And my sister moved here. And it's crazy because, the cost of living is so high in California. And then when you come to Tennessee, during that time, 20-something years ago, you could buy a nice house for $140,000.
Oh, yeah.
So it was perfect because they sold their little 1,300 square foot house in California and made a ton of money on it, and then came over here and, bought their house. So
when did you say, this isn't so bad, leave college? And when were you not mad at your mother?
Oh, within 2 weeks probably. Because I knew I had finally gotten to a place where I took responsibility for my son. I took responsibility as a student. I took responsibility as someone who owned their own place of living. It wasn't a home, but it was a home to me. And it was small, where I had to clean it and I had to pay bills. And then I went and got some jobs, and so I worked on campus at Lee 10 hours a week, and then I went and got a job at a bank, and then I got another job for Brock's Candy during the summer.
Where is that? That's in
Chattanooga. I drove there every day to work. And
why not just get a job in Cleveland?
I couldn't. I tried different places to find, and that place I think was paying like $18 an hour, and so I was driving over there to work there, just a summer job.
So while you're doing that, the other students are
going to their parents' house, laying by the pool and everything else, but they didn't have a child like I did.
Yeah.
So I had to put them in daycare, and it was difficult. And sometimes when I think back at that time, it kind of hurts my heart because I had to be at Brock's at 8 a.m. And I didn't want to be late, so I would take my son to daycare on Dalton Pike. And I would be there as soon as it opened at like 7 a.m. And then he'd stay there all day. And then I would leave work at 5 p.m. and then take the interstate back to go pick him up. And I would be there about 6. So he was the first child there at 2 and then the last child there. So
how old was he there?
2.
Is he okay with it?
Yeah, he doesn't remember. He was happy. For me, it was just sad because that was a choice I made, because I chose to have sex when I was 16 years old, and that's part of the responsibility of being a parent. And I was by myself. So I was responsible for feeding him, clothing him, bathing him, teaching him, and taking him to daycare and picking him up, because I didn't have anybody else to help me. So it was a difficult time.
Boy, those 3 years.
Actually, yeah, he was there until he started school. Which he started preschool about 5.
But when your mother came down, that was some help.
Yeah. But then, as working as a police officer, I really needed her help because I was working 3rd shift.
But now we've skipped. We got to fill in the gap between Brock and police officer.
Yes, that's true. Yes. When he started going to school, then I was able to. I was right there at Lee, so he was going to Mayfield Elementary. So he was just right there. And then eventually, when I became a school resource officer, he started going to Arnold, because we moved and we were on our own instead of living with my parents. When my parents came here, we did move in with them. Because when I went to the police academy, I was gone for 10 weeks. So they had to keep my son for 10 weeks.
Golly.
So, but eventually things worked out great. And he finished school, and now he's living in Colorado. He's 27 years old. So... yeah, he's a good man. He's a good man.
What does he do in Colorado?
Right now, he is managing some Airbnb properties. So he lives in Colorado Springs, and that's a big touristy place. And so he has a friend who got some investors to help him buy some properties. And so my son manages those 4 properties, and they're booked. I mean, back to back to back to back.
Is he into all that wilderness stuff? Well,
he went there because his really good friends live there, And I think that Josh was just kind of trying to figure out. Yeah, he likes the outdoors, but it was more for the opportunity of doing this, and eventually he wants to buy his own place and do an Airbnb, because that's super popular out there in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, it's popular a lot of places.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure how they do that. I guess you just go online and say, I want to stay here and this is available and we'll clean it when you leave.
Yep, that's it.
And you get a little more than...
Sometimes $150 a night. And people rent it 3 days, and then he has to make sure that the people come in and clean it, and then he checks it, and then he checks the next person in at 3 p.m. So the renters leave at 11 a.m. They have the cleaning crew comes in, cleans, he checks it at 2, and then the new renters come in at 3.
Is he a real responsible?
Yeah, he's very responsible.
Sounds like that would be.
But he's calling me now going, Mom, can I have $15,000 so I can buy my own house and do my own Airbnb here? I was like, not yet. Not yet. No, I'm still paying my college loans. I'm not going to do that right now. So
Why did you graduate at Lee in law? They don't have law enforcement there, do they?
No, I never wanted to be a police officer. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to do mission work, and I thought I would be somewhere in South or Central America or even Mexico.
Like your parents?
Yeah, they were missionaries in Mexico, but I mean, I've always wanted to help people and help the less fortunate, and so when I graduated, or when I got close to when I graduated, I had gone into Cleveland High School and I had told my story several times. And so the teacher of the criminal justice class came and asked me, hey, are you interested in a job? And I said, sure, because I had school loans that I had to pay. I was like, I can't do whatever I want to do until I get those things paid off. And so when I went to the police department, he had me fill out the application, and then where it says position applied for, I said, what do you want me to write here? And he said, police officer. And I thought, I don't want to be a police officer. But that apparently, it wasn't really my choice, because I believe that God ordained me to work in that job and to serve this community for as long as he wants me to.
Had you ever carried a gun then?
No. Not legally.
Until you became a police officer? Till you went to the academy?
No, I mean, I had no idea.
Yeah.
No, I had no idea. I had no idea about police work or anything like that. I mean, I had some negative run-ins with the police when I lived in California, but I think just the group of people I ran with, so it just caused none of my run-ins with the police before that time were positive. None of them were.
Why did they ask you to give a speech for the Cleveland schools?
Because they wanted me to talk to kids about the dangers of abusing drugs and alcohol and premarital sex. I had a child at a young age, and then had another one when I was a teenager, and had to walk through placing him for adoption and figuring that whole thing out. And so I think they were just asking me to come so I could talk to the kids and let them know what kind of consequences there are when you make choices.
But how did they know that you had these?
I think during that time I had spoken different places. I've spoken at churches and organizations, businesses, all kinds of places, and just shared my story. I used to be, I guess, in a place where I kind of felt ashamed. But I've gotten to the place now where I understand that by sharing the things that I've done and becoming vulnerable with that it can really help somebody else to make good choices. So.
And we all have stuff like that.
All of us.
So you thought, well, I might as well be a police officer. I don't have nothing else to do instead of being a missionary?
No. I didn't think that at all. I thought that there was a divine purpose for me doing that job, because that was not something I chose myself. It was chosen for me. I believe that it was part of my destiny to walk on that road of being a police officer for a purpose. And I know that what that purpose is, because I've been able to help a lot of people with the job that I do.
If we think, and I agree with you, a lot of things that happen to us or divine intervention, like the police officer offering you the job. But couldn't the other stuff that caused you to have that been divine intervention too?
What do you mean, the other stuff?
I mean, getting pregnant early. Couldn't that have been part of the grand scheme of things and not necessarily your fault?
Oh, absolutely. No, it was my fault. Yeah, that was my fault. Because that's what I chose that. See, there are things in life where people choose certain actions that can cause and reap certain benefits or certain consequences. And there are things that are chosen for people that can also reap really bad consequences. And I'll give you an example of that. When I was, during that time between 12 and 19, I was experimenting with a lot of things, with drugs and alcohol. And I chose to have sex before marriage. And because of that, I got pregnant at 16. And because of that, my son is not an accident. He's not a mistake. I believe that the Lord created him to be my son, and there's purpose for his life. But there were serious consequences because of that. Consequences for me having to leave him at daycare for 11 hours a day, not being able to be home with him and spend a lot of time with him because I was always working or going to school. But there are also consequences that happen to people that don't choose that stuff. For instance, a young lady who is raped by an uncle, molested by a cousin or a brother or a father. So there reaps really bad consequences for a choice that she didn't make, that somebody else made to her. So yeah, I think that we make choices in our life, and at times that can kind of move us off the path that we're supposed to be on, the destiny that we're supposed to be on. But ultimately that choice got me to Cleveland, Tennessee, because I don't believe that if I hadn't been involved in all that, that my parents would have made me leave. They would want the best for me. They would want me to be close. But there was purpose that I came to Cleveland, Tennessee in 1996. And there's purpose that I'm graduated from Lee, and there was purpose in me becoming a police officer, and there's purpose of me continuing to stay in this community. And so every day I have to ask the Lord, like, what is it? Like, why do you have me here? What do you want me to do? And how can I help people? Because ultimately that's my goal, is to help others. It's not about myself.
How do we know what God is trying to tell us?
He speaks to us.
Not audibly, just...
He could.
You think it's more of a...
He could speak to us. He can do whatever he wants to do. Yeah, he can speak to us audibly if he wants to. I've never heard him speak audibly.
But when you know a direction to go, you think, and you're very certain about it, you think that's a sign.
Yeah, I believe that that's the Lord saying, "Hey, this is the way I want you to go. Walk in it," and I obey. Now, do we make mistakes? Absolutely, every single day. I do something I shouldn't do, say something I shouldn't say, but the good thing about him is that he's a good father, and he loves us so much, and he has purpose for us. If you honestly think that you're just here on this earth just to fulfill a purpose of being a builder or whatever. No, God has, and that could be obviously his divine plan for you to help other people, you know. But we're not just here to just live. We have purpose. There's purpose. So we have to be very intentional about everything that we do every single day. Every day being attentive to his voice, saying, okay, how can I help someone today? What can I do to please you? How can I be a blessing to somebody else? And in that obedience, he blesses us.
But you had some training in speaking.
We're going back to that. I don't know. Do I talk any different than you?
You talk deliberate.
Well, I have something deliberate to say.
Yeah. But so have you had some training in school? I mean, 4-H or?
No, I didn't have 4-H. I don't know.
Girl Scouts?
No, I was never a Girl Scout.
Public speaking of any kind?
I mean, no. I mean,
Wes obviously saw something like that.
I guess he did.
Yeah.
I guess he
I'm
did.
good friends with Wes.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy.
He is a good guy.
Smart guy.
Yeah.
So, now you've written a book. I assume that this book has something to do with what you think is your mission.
So, yes. So anyway, here, okay, so I'll just tell you this. This book, I did not write the book. What I did was I met with a lady named Wendy Brown for an entire year on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And I told her my story.
Where's she
Start
from?
to finish. She lived here in Cleveland. Now she's living in Colorado Springs because she's a counselor for Focus on the Family. So I shared my story with her, and she wrote this book. It has pictures in it of me and how I used to look and all that kind of stuff, my family. And then, and then it came out. And
So this book. So that's your name, Evie West.
Mm-hmm.
So this is sort of your, not biography, but
it's my life story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that story ended when I talked about placing my son for adoption. But since this book has been published, I've met my son. And so I'm in the process now of writing a second book. And I'm basically going to take this one and I'm going to reword it, and I'm going to talk about all the things that I did then, and then meeting my son and how that's changed my life, and then really talk about how things in life can kind of stunt your growth. There are things in life that happen to us that can stunt our growth and not allow us to move forward. And the good news about that is that you can be free from that stuff. You don't have to stay in that place of hurt and trauma. And I think you see a lot of that when, like in the job that I'm in, because people don't call the police to say, hey, come over and look at the roast I made. It's beautiful. They come in and they call the police and say, my husband just shot himself. My kid is dead on the ground from, looks like an overdose. My daughter's been raped, something like that. And so there's always things that happen in our lives. And they could be small pains or they could be large ones. Like small as far as maybe being rejected by your father. Like my son, for instance, when he was growing up, his father wasn't around. And so he has to go through those feelings of abandonment and maybe some insecurity because, like, how come he didn't want to be with me? How come he didn't want to be around me? How come he didn't want to be part of my life? So it could be those kind of hurts.
Mm-hmm. That's where you get the word revolving choices.
Well, I kept making decisions that really not just affected me, but affected so many people. And when you make choices like that, you not only hurt yourself, but you hurt people around you as well. I hurt my parents. I mean, my parents were scared to death that, they said, oh, when we heard police sirens, we thought they were going to come to our house and tell us that you were dead somewhere. Because I was hanging with the wrong bunch. And so, so just continuing to make those choices over and over again until ultimately, I got moved out of there and can't come here. But in life, we just have to understand things hurt us and there's trauma that happens, but we don't have to stay in that spot for the rest of our life.
Maybe it's not necessarily the choice we make, but it's the next one we make. That's important too, right?
Every choice we make has either a positive consequence or a negative consequence.
And sometimes we don't even know if it's a big deal yet.
You're right. It could be down the road. Yeah.
Who inspires you? I mean, we talk about inspiring people, but who inspires you?
There's a woman in the Bible named Esther, and Esther was an orphan when she was really little, and her uncle Mordecai, or they call her cousin, whatever, he adopted her, and she was chosen by the king to be his wife.
She was the one eating the wheat on the perimeter of the field, right?
No,
she'd gather the wheat.
No, that's Ruth and Naomi.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Esther, she was a queen, but in those days, you couldn't go before the king just to ask for anything. I mean, you had to be called into his presence. And there was a guy named Haman who was the king's, worked for the king and had devised a plan to kill all the Jews. And so Mordecai told Esther about that plan that Haman had. And so Esther, without being called before the king, she went in his presence to plead on behalf of her people, the Jews. And that was a life and death situation for her because she could have not said anything. Said, "Oh, I can't go before the king, my husband, because if I do and I'm not called, he can take my head off." But she chose, because she was so passionate about her people and she was passionate to help other people, that she was going to risk her own life to save somebody else's. And to me, that boldness and that courage is far beyond more than anyone else that I have known in this lifetime has done. And I admire that, and I want to be that type of person, that no matter what the norm is, no matter what everybody else is saying, I have to hold true to my convictions as a believer in Jesus, but also like a pro-life advocate. I'm against abortion. Do I not like the women who have had abortion? No, I love them, and I want to educate people on how important it is for us to stand up for life, even if it risks our reputation or our own life, because I'm very passionate about that. So if you believe in something, then no matter what everybody else says around you, if you believe it and you know it's truth, then you stand up for it, and you be an advocate for that, because that is what counts in life.
Boy, that's a lot of thinking.
Yeah, it's a lot to process. Sorry.
No, I got it. But so if somebody buys this book, they'll learn more in depth of what you've just told us.
Yeah, I mean that's about my life up until the adoption, until after the adoption. Yeah. But I think right now I'm getting low on those books because I haven't ordered any more, because I'm writing a new one, and I'm going to take that one and incorporate it in this new one.
Who did the publishing?
Pathway. Locally, Pathway.
So what do they charge you to make this?
Probably $6 or $5, something like that. And then I would sell them for $10, and then I would take the extra money and.
So if somebody wants to buy this book, where do they go?
Well, I guess they could contact me on Facebook, but like I said, I don't have that many more of those left. I didn't want to order anymore because I'm writing a new one. So, and it's gonna be that book in the new one. So it will just be like there's one book. You don't have to buy that one.
What's it going to be titled?
I'm still kind of milling on that. I'm still kind of waiting on that to see if it's going to change. I mean, I have something in my mind, but I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with that. We'll
what
see.
If you said it's all choices?
Yeah.
It's all choices.
Possibly, yes.
Now, is there anybody in Cleveland that you sort of, boy, I really look up to that person, or besides this Wendy Brown? It sounds like she's pretty.
Oh, I like her
pretty
too.
Spot on. She looks familiar too.
She's a writer from here. Yeah, she's a writer. I think Kay Horner is someone that I respect a lot. Kay Horner was the director of the New Hope Pregnancy Care Center when I went in '96. She didn't know me from anybody, but when I walked in here, a girl from California looking to have an abortion and not realizing that I walked into a pregnancy center, she loved me. She prayed for me. She gave me maternity clothes. She helped me, and I want to be that type of person that will help anybody at all costs. I think that's super important.
I believe you. It's evident that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Are you going to stay with the police department?
Yeah, I plan to. As long as he has me there, unless God decides to move me and say, "Yep, I got someplace else for you to go." But I love my job. I absolutely love it. Like, sometimes I hear people complaining about their job, and I feel sad for them because I love going to work.
Do you have an office in there? Just your very own office?
Yeah, my very own, yeah.
You get there like at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock?
8 o'clock. I work 8 to 4. And I never know how my day's going to go. I could walk in there and just be like, okay, I don't have anything on my schedule this morning. And then someone say, hey, there's someone down in the lobby for you. And then I could go and spend 2 hours with a complete stranger that I don't know because they're going through trauma.
What are some of the groups that, if someone's in this situation or similar situation that you were in, who could they go to get help from? Like the pregnancy center, did you say?
New Hope Pregnancy Care Center is a phenomenal organization here. You can go in there and get free pregnancy tests, free ultrasounds, and especially for women who are in crisis pregnancies and not really knowing if they want to keep the baby. I'm a huge advocate for adoption because there are some couples that cannot have children and would love to raise the child, and every person has a purpose in life. And so I don't believe that we should just discard humans with the trash. I absolutely do not believe that. I believe that we need to make a stand for life, and we need to make sure that our voice is heard. That was one thing I respected a lot about President Trump, because he was a pro-life president, and he signed policies to defund us sending money to different countries to fund their abortions. And now it's reversed, and so I don't like that. I think that we have to understand and value human life.
He never wavered from that either, did he? Even when it was not popular.
But even if he did, Dee, even if he was pro-choice 2 years ago, people can be pro-choice, but the problem is that once you know the truth about what abortion is and what it does and how it affects us as people, then we need to make the decision to stand for life. So even if he was pro-choice 15 years ago, 20 years ago, or whatever, I don't care. What I care about now is that he's pro-life and that he signed policies into effect that defunded sending money to different countries and Planned Parenthood here, even in our own country. That the government would not fund abortions, and I don't believe at all.
That's a strange name for something that does almost the opposite of what it says, isn't it?
Planned Parenthood. Yeah, because if it's not in your plan, if you don't plan a pregnancy, then it's unexpected, and if it's unexpected and it's not the right time, then you just get rid of it, discard it. There's somebody here that you can find that will love that child. Nobody would
agree with getting rid of people that were over 90, would they?
I know. Yeah.
And what's the difference?
Yeah. Every human life has value. Every human life has value. Every person of every skin color has value. Every person of every ethnicity has value. Every person.
And people's rights, it says we have the right to. You think that the Constitution was for unborn children also, right?
It should be. I mean, at conception, it's a baby.
But it's an argument every 4 years, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's baffling to know that we're so flippant on that. That should be, and people say, "Oh, Evie, you're just a one issue voter." Okay, call it whatever you want. I stand for life, and I'm not going to waver on that, period. I don't care what anybody says. The whole world can be against me. That's what I believe. I saw real-life abortions. I was educated on that. I was going to choose that for my son and made a decision to choose life. Am I better than the woman that's placed for adoption or that's had an abortion? No, absolutely not. But what my hope is to share my story with other people, so that if women find themselves in a crisis pregnancy, that they'll choose life every time for their child and say, okay, I'm going to have to go through adoption. I cannot kill this child. I cannot do it.
How would they make that decision? Say, okay, I'm pregnant. I'm going to let you adopt my child. And then as it gets closer, they start changing their mind.
There's a connection between a mom and her child.
But what about the parents that are going to adopt it? Now they've been planning.
Right, that's true.
It's sort of bad on both ends.
It is bad on both ends, and they suffered great loss from that. But in reality, the court system does want a birth mother with her birth child. They do, but if you choose to place your child for adoption, you relinquish your rights. You sign the paperwork. Then it's just it's difficult. It's not an easy decision. It's not. That was one of the most difficult things, and I suffered greatly for it for many years. I would cry on his birthday, and I would cry thinking about him at Christmas time and Easter and 4th of July, and thinking, oh, he's graduating from middle school now, and I remember driving across the Tennessee River and thinking to myself, today he's graduating from high school, and I'm not there. you know.
It can't get any worse than that, can it?
Well, I'm sure it could. You know, I'm sure things could get worse. They could always be worse. But ultimately, that was a decision I had to make. And man, his mom stayed home with him for the first 6 years of his life and taught him. And then she went and got a job at his school and was a teacher's assistant at his school. And so she took him to school. She brought him home from school. She was home, you know, unlike me, where my son was in a daycare from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, you know. So there's advantages to adoption, a lot of advantages to adoption.
How old is he now?
My son, 24. Yep, he'll be 25 in July.
You see him now, right?
Well, I've seen him a few times. I met him in 2017, but now I could pick up the phone and call him at any time or text him and talk to him. He lives in Cincinnati, Ohio, so it's not as easy just to. And of course, with the pandemic and stuff, I haven't seen him since 2019, but I have connection with him. So to me, that's what matters.
Now he's not adopted or nothing. He's just his own man.
He's
right?
his own man now. Yep. Yeah. But he graduated from college and has a good job working for Kroger. He works as a computer analyst, and so he does well. He does well.
Well, it's sad no matter how you look at it, isn't it?
It is, but for him, I think that by sacrificing what I wanted, allowed him to have a good life. He has a good mom and dad.
It worked out.
Oh yeah, they love him. They've took him on a lot of experiences and traveled with him, and yeah, he didn't want for anything. Thankfully.
Does he know his stepbrother?
Yeah. Yep. He knows.
They communicate much?
Yeah, I mean they talk. I think one thing you have to understand is we were strangers to him for many years. So while we're family, we're very different too, because he was raised different.
Different culture.
Yeah.
Where was his town?
In Hamilton, Ohio. Yeah, but he kind of experienced the same thing because he's got black hair and dark skin, and he grew up in a town that's all white people. So even though he's Mexican American, kids would ask him. He told me kids would ask him like, "Why am I so dark? Why is your hair so dark? Why is your skin so dark?" You know, and he's like, "How come I'm not white like everybody else?" But so we kind of went through the same thing, but on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he adjusted to it pretty good.
I guess he did. Yeah. He had lots of friends, so.
So what would be your statement to anybody that's having a question whether or not to have an abortion?
Choose life. That's my statement. Choose life. I was so dead set on, I had made plans to have an abortion and thought that New Hope Pregnancy Crisis Center was an abortion clinic. And then when I went in, I figured out what it was. And they were quick thinking. They put on that video of what abortion was and educated me on that. And I saw a child in a womb. Like, just like you would see, like when a woman's pregnant, she's like, look at my sonogram picture. You see the head and the body? And I saw a syringe come through the stomach. And I saw that baby ingest that fluid that came out of that syringe and die right on the TV in front of me. And a partial birth abortion where a woman births the head of a child and they stick something like scissors or some kind of really sharp instrument in the back of the skull.
God,
and then they take a vacuum and suck out the brains. And so because it's legal because the part of the body is still inside the mother, and then she pushes out a dead baby. And that's just normal. Just a procedure.
Like getting your ears pierced.
Yeah, and they discard the body just with the trash. So when I saw that, I knew like I can't do that.
They didn't have to do anything else to convince you.
That was it. And I was in a worse predicament because I couldn't have an abortion because now I had no other option. Other than adoption. So.
So you had to wait.
Yeah, I carried my son to term, and then had him at Bradley Memorial, and I had already chosen the parents, and they came down and spent time with me, and then on July 31st of 1996, I gave my son to the family, and I stood in the circle, the front circle at Bradley Memorial, and watched as they drove off with my son, and not knowing in my life if I was ever going to see him again, which was, it was like ripping your heart out.
And your other one was 3 at the time.
Yep.
But it was for the best.
It was what I had to do. I had to do that. I was still in school. I was working 3 jobs. There's no way I could have handled a newborn, a 3-year-old, and gone to school and worked 3 jobs. And there's no way I couldn't have done it.
You'd have been in a funny farm.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're doing mission work just like your parents were.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Just from another angle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all, I mean, anytime that you help people, it's mission work. Anytime you help people, it pleases God's heart.
But some people do work because they care. You do it because you care and you feel like it's what God's wants.
It's what all of us are supposed to do. It's what all of us. I mean, if you read the Bible and look at Jesus' life, everywhere he went, he touched somebody. He, like the lame person, they walked. The person that was sick, the person that was dead, he raised from the dead. The woman who had 5 husbands and was kind of an outcast, he healed her. I mean, everywhere he went, he touched somebody. That's what we all are supposed to do.
I believe that's why we're here.
Yeah, 100%.
Listen, I appreciate you coming.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.